This is Henry.
Hello, Henry. This is Dustin Wellness from KMSU Radio.
Hey.
How you doing?
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Are we on for an interview today?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, I'm here with my co-host, Ton.
Hey there. How you doing?
Oh, very good. Thanks.
Well, we got some questions for you.
Okay.
First of all, we want to maybe ask you a little bit about your new your capitalism tour. You're making your way through all the capitals. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's basically what it is. It was my agent's idea. I'm not nearly as inventive. And he came to me with that March or April of 2011 and said, what do you think? I said, that's brilliant. You should book that, now. And so we set to work on it well over a year ago. And I think it's just a great way to wind down, the last days of this next election. And it'll be an interesting way to see where America's at by going through all the capital cities. And I tour America. This is my 31st year of touring America, and it's a really beautiful country. And so, an autumn tour is you get to see America in a really nice, seasonal phase. So I'm looking forward to it from every possible angle.
Awesome. Well, you've been doing spoken word albums and tours, ever since you were in Black Flag.
Yep, 83 I started.
Yeah, is that something... was that always kind of in the forefront? You always leaned more towards the spoken word stuff? Or?
No, I just kind of took gigs as they came. I started doing talking shows in L.A. at the behest of a local promoter who would pay you $10 and would give you 10 minutes on stage at these big shows he would do with there's 20 people a night. They were fun. And he said, why don't you get up there? You got a big mouth. And I said, well, all right. And, $10 in those days, would keep you fed for a while. And I just found that I really enjoyed just having the latitude of being able to speak without it being between songs or discomforting the guitar player, or whatever. And so I started doing more of those shows, and it seemed to fit.
Well, you were obviously in Black Flag, and then when you went off on your own, and you really kind of became... you found some mainstream success with the Rollins Band around the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at all that happened? Or?
Yeah. Yes and no. Sure, I was happy and surprised for any break that kept us fed. Because I have a band to pay salaries to, so if things improve, me having to kind of foot the whole thing, it definitely lessens the amount of gastric acid burning through your intestines at 4 in the morning, which, I found here's what being the, quote, the boss is like. This is what you get. Anyway, so that kind of success was great because it allows you just, more shows. It wasn't necessarily surprising in that in the late 80s, early 90s, I saw music kind of sort of like what we were playing start to get more accepted. Here's Nirvana, Dinosaur Jr., the Pixies. There's all these bands that are not FM friendly, yet there's a lot of people showing up at these shows. In summer 91, I was on the first Lollapalooza. And when you all of a sudden are playing in front of 16,000 people, you're like, oh, because I always thought we were pretty good. And I always thought all these bands I'm surrounded by, Jane's Addiction, Butthole Surfers, all these bands, I always thought they were good too. I always wondered why I was watching, the Surfers play in front of 185 people. Am I crazy, or why aren't there more people? And then you find out there are a lot of people interested. And then here comes Nine Inch Nails and all these bands, and all of a sudden these bands are now platinum acts. And radio stations you've never been on before, you're all of a sudden on these stations, and you're talking to people who wouldn't give you the time of day 3 years ago. And so the whole thing was more interesting than anything. But ultimately, for myself and a lot of people in bands, once you're on stage, it's only about the music. It doesn't really matter where you are. That's momentary. You walk out and go, wow, there's a lot of people. But then you got to get to work, and you got to crank it out. So the 90s were a very, interesting decade for myself and my bandmates. I was on the road pretty much every damn year of that decade.
Yeah, and then you eventually announced that you were retiring from music.
Yeah, I stopped writing lyrics. I just there's nothing in me that registers lyrical, which relegated me to playing what would be old music, which is for some people a good living. Ask the Doobie Brothers. But for me, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to live in the past as time moves on. And so when I had no more lyrics in me, I said, okay, well, if I'm not going to make anything new, then I'm not going to go out and reprocess the old. And so I said, well, I'll just do everything else, and we'll see what happens. And that was, 6 years ago. And now it takes me about 7 days a week to keep up with all the things that come my way. But, in my mind, the idea was to keep things honest.
Yeah, it seems like you have all sorts of projects going on all the time. But do you think the music will ever come back, or is that a done deal?
Yeah, I don't think, no, I think it's done. In that, for me, I'm not a musician. I mean, I can carry instruments, but I can't play them. I mean, I honestly, if you gave me a guitar and said play something, I don't know where to put my hands. I have no interest. I like to listen. And for me, the music was an opportunity just to write something of how I felt and go up there and yell it and have the music around me so I could just push myself to an emotional and physical extreme. And once those waters kind of calmed and I kind of ran out of bullets, I went, well, I just holstered the weapon and hung up the belt. Otherwise, it turns into pantomime. And I still agree with the songs that I wrote or was involved in, like with Black Flag. And I wouldn't mind going out and singing those songs tonight. I like them. I mean, they're part of me. But artistically, to me, it's not brave. It's not risking anything. It's a sure thing. You're shooting fish in a barrel. You're playing pre-approved songs, and you're going to get you kind of know the reaction you're going to get. Where's the risk? And I don't know, risk keeps the blood thin. And I'd rather have an unsure thing and win than a sure thing and feel like a peach floating in heavy syrup in a can.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a bit about your acting career. You end up being pretty regular in a lot of different things, big films, TV shows.
Yeah, well, I got a big mouth and I'm kind of crazy. So in the 80s, Hollywood directors who had probably seen me when they were in college started calling me and said, hey, can you act? I'm like, yeah, can you pay? And I was starving. and I have no training. I just go with my gut, and you basically figure out the truth of the character. I mean, I'm sure this is like the first 10 minutes of any acting class you take, but you just figure out, well, this guy's telling his own truth, so you got to find it and then come from that corner, and hopefully that will dictate your physical reactions. And I learned with acting, you really have to listen. I mean, it's all about acting is very much reacting, and it keeps you honest in that scene. And after you get the hang for it as to what kind of sort of what the art of it is, then it becomes very enjoyable, where you can really micromanage the performance and really shape it to it's barely perceptible the changes you're making. A good director can see it, but someone watching just thinks, oh, he's doing his thing. Well, there's a lot of beats going into that thing you just did, and the really good actors can take a milligram off a performance and like move one part of their eyebrow. I mean, they can dial it in to such a degree where it's pretty astonishing. Like when you work with real actors, the prowess some of these people exhibit is scary.
Yeah, man. Well, one thing we wanted to ask you about, we're big fans of the Henry Rollins Show.
Oh, thanks.
And it was sad to see that they took it off. Do you think you might ever bring that back, or maybe some other sort of...
I've never not wanted to bring it back, and we are actually working towards that as a goal. And we obviously wouldn't be this year. This year's, spoken for. So we're looking for next year for something like that to happen. We haven't even sat down with it yet, but we have the people in mind who want to sit down with us, and we want to sit down with them as well. Yeah, I thought we did pretty good on that show, especially the second season. When we had of the first season, I called in a lot of favors, interesting, well-known people I knew, and said, hey, dude, do my show, will you? And I'm like, sure. And so we developed a really good-looking show reel, which you have to show to agents and managers, because they want nothing but their client to look good. And when you show them 8 other people they respect on the show, you're like, well, I better get my client in on this one. But you need some luck. You just need some people who are like fans of yours. Like, you have a show? I'll be on it. You need like at least 5 of those.
Yeah.
And thankfully, apparently I had them. And second season was just us able to cold call people and say, hey, I have this show. Yes, I know. I saw it last year. We want to be on it? Absolutely. And so I thought the third season would have been, the second season plus 30% more speed, efficiency, and velocity.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you compare it to the other stuff on, with the so-and-so from American Idol is on Leno and all that stuff, I mean, this was definitely a welcome change from...
Well, I do the show like I do I did the TV show like I do my radio show, like I do everything else I do. I assume, which is dangerous, but I assume that you, the viewer, have an option. It's called the remote. I mean, you got a lot of options. And I figure that your threshold of boredom is like mine. I don't have one. You can lose me in like 2 sentences, and I'm gone. I'll go back to reading the book I should have been reading rather than turn on the stupid television. And so I figure I better keep this moving. Also, guests, trust me, they want questions with teeth because they get asked, oh, so you had the dog on the plane once. I mean, they get asked the Leno questions, and they don't like them. They're just trying to sell theater tickets or whatever.
Yeah.
They'd much rather talk about, something else. And being interviewed a lot, I said, well, I want to bring that to the interview format when I interview people. And, some of these people afterwards were thanking me, going, wow, that was the only fun interview I've done this week. I said, yeah, I know how it is, so that's why I asked those questions.
Yeah.
And I just figured the viewers are moving fast mentally. They really do want, and that's been proven by HBO, Showtime, things like Breaking Bad and all those shows that are moving very quickly. The writing is intense, and consumers are saying, another season, please, because we're not dumb, and our minds are Lamborghinis, and they really want to go down the track at an amazing rate of speed. And when you gratify that by not treating them like they're stupid, because who's really all that stupid anyway, I think you get an overall better result.
Definitely. Well, sort of on that same hand there, what are your thoughts on the music industry today with more people kind of skipping the major labels and doing the DIY thing?
I think music's better than ever. I can't keep up with all the new records I've been buying.
So then who are some of the bands that you're excited about nowadays?
There's a great metal band called High on Fire, and their new album, Vermis de Mysteries, is as great as all their other albums. It's completely mind-blowing. It's like Godzilla stomping on your head. It's fantastic. Dinosaur Jr. has a new album coming out called I Bet on Sky, which is incredible. The new Deerhoof album called Breakup Song. I just got an advanced copy of that. It's their best album in quite a while, and they're all great. But this one's awesome. The OCs, a great California independent band, have a new album coming out in mid-September. I just premiered it on my radio show last weekend. It's fantastic. It's called Putrefier 2. And so there's lots of great indie stuff popping up and lots of great, crazy, noisy music coming from all over the world. Great, crushing, head-stomping metal, great, psychotic jazz from Japan and Italy that's really ripping. I mean, there's just, I don't know, if you're into really different music, I don't know, the world is very forthcoming with kind of mind-blowing records. I got through 4 records last night. I try and listen to minimum 2 records a day when I get off work, and 4 optimum. So I got through 4 last night, and one from, 2 from Italy, 1 from Finland, and 2 from Italy and 2 from Finland. That's what I got done last night.
So do you feel sort of like a sense of pride that these kids nowadays are getting back in the vans and doing everything themselves, kind of like it was when you were in Black Flag?
Not pride, relief. Relief that they figured out the man really doesn't have anything for you, but he just wants to hand you a harness so you can pull his plow on his field, chop his cotton, send it to market, and get a mere pittance. I'm so glad so many artists went, wait a minute, why am I paying $3,500 for a photo session when I can hand my friend my camera and he can do the band photos? Thank you very much. Why am I having a manager book, this when I just called the dude myself?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of artists are getting off the farm. I call it the cotton farm. A lot of artists are realizing the power of the 13th Amendment, and much to the consternation, chagrin, and dismay of your Sonys and your Interscopes, and long may they wave, and believe me, they'll last longer than carbon. But a lot of bands finally looked around and went, oh, We don't need that, which drives record prices up, ticket prices up, distances and disenfranchises us from our audience. And now the bands are closer, to the audience, which is always how it should have been. And the whole thing is everyone kind of woke up from this coma. No one's impressed anymore by the label you're on. It used to be quite the status symbol when I was younger. What label are you on? Now, believe me, no one gives a hot damn what label you're on. They just want to hear the music, which should be, and I'm a record buying freak, so I care about labels, and I have a radio show, so there's labels that I really believe in, and so we keep in touch, because there's a label like In the Red, who just put out the new OC's record. Larry, who runs, he's very brave. Larry puts out records that he's going to starve to death putting out those records. They're so good, and so I make damn sure I play things off every record Larry puts out on In the Red. I just support his label. But you're not going to meet any chicks by saying, I'm In the Red, I'm on In the Red Records. Like, no one cares. They just want to hear your damn music. And thankfully, no one cares what you drive like they used to, unless they're extremely superficial. So those kind of paradigms are shifting. And I think it's for the better, because we're finally just getting on with the music rather than the pretense and the kind of the gleam. And there still is that. There's your Katy Perry's, and I don't know her. I'm sure she's a lovely woman. But you hear the music, and it's nothing that I can invest an afternoon in. But I think 6 million sales later, I don't think she's worrying about her next meal. So those people will do just fine. But thankfully for people like me, there is a choice. Where for a while there, like 8 years ago, it was like, wow, are you all trying to get on the Grammys? I mean, what is this? And so I think things are better than ever.
Definitely. Well, after you wrap up your Capitalism tour, is there anything else you see coming up? Any projects?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm lining, this year's kind of shot, obligation-wise. And so I'm lining up next year, which is the off-tour year, which is always challenging because I have to go out into the world and go to hot and risky places to get new stories for the 2014 tour. I also have to stay employed. And at this point, I have the potential for multiple mind-blowing projects that will keep me employed. And the fun part is I still have to line up all the crazy countries I want to try and get through without getting my head chopped off. and so that's the fun part. But I'm off the road for a couple of weeks now just because one tour ended, one leg ended, another begins soon. And so this week and next week I'll be in meetings trying to line up possible employment for next year.
Wow.
Awesome.
You're a busy man.
Employment is basically TV, radio, film, kind of swinging from those Hollywood vines. I'm not looking for a job at Home Depot, which isn't bad work. I'm just saying I'm looking for a TV show or a film to be in, or documentaries to shoot, or some kind of cool trouble to get into. And so I'm right now I don't have anything, but I've got some really cool meetings lined up, and so things are in the works. But Homeboy needs a job next year. I'm looking for it.
Awesome.
And this is like every other year. This is what happens to me. Like, I need a job. Like summer 2009, I was in Sons of Anarchy. That was my job. And then 2010, I was on the road all year. I tour every other year. On the even years, I do a tour. This year will be 181 shows. I'm 115 shows in right now. Next year will be more like 50 shows, and whatever work I can get.
Wow.
Yeah.
Keeping at it.
Yeah, and as David Lee Roth once said, sailing the sea of consequence.
There you go. Well, we want to say it's been definitely an honor for us to have you on today.
Thank you very much. I'll see you down the road.
All right, man.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks.